It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood. Reaction Beanie Yo 194. Day in the neighborhood. My brothers and sisters, Christmas has came early this week, y'all. It came a day early because we usually watch this man weekly videos on Wednesday. But when I literally got home and got on YouTube ready to do a reaction video with my people, he put it up just 3 minutes ago. So we get to watch it today. And y'all already know who that man is. Mike from that chapter. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Going to Mike on a Tuesday. In the title of the video, preparing to commit an evil crime that shocked a country. I just wonder, like, what preparing, like, you know what I'm saying? What was the evil plot behind it? And it gotta be pretty goddamn evil to shock a whole country. Unless that country just don't really deal with crimes like that. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. We finna see. I'm excited because I did not expect to get into Mike today. But before we get into Mike today, my people, y'all know what y'all got to do. Get whatever you may need. Get what you need. We back to Mike once again, ladies and gentlemen. Y'all got what y'all need. Y'all ready to go? Then let's fucking go.
So the 5 houses would have been right there, right behind the wall. Like one would have been right there at the corner. 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
The bodies were found in separate rooms upstairs, one partially in the bed, the other lying in a pool of blood.
5 houses. They're all owned by the health service. The people who stayed in those houses were all patients.
What the hell? That's Mike. What the? Is Mike? He going on the street showing like what a shit that happened now or something? He got something else going on. You know what I'm saying? He put another twist to his videos. That's Mike, bro. I know you're going to explain what the hell going on, but let's just see. Let's go.
From the psychiatric hospital.
As this country's most prolific serial
So
killer.
this would have been the wall the killer would have climbed to get into the back of the house.
I would say we're looking for a male person, aged in his late teens to early 20s.
Hey you, and welcome. My name is Mike, and in this old video I'm going to tell you a story from start to finish. A story that shocked my home of Ireland, if you can believe that. It's a story of an invasion. It's a story of wrong guy, right guy, and it's a story that's pretty reminiscent actually of one that's kind of going on right now in the University of Idaho. On a dark March night in a Dublin suburb, a man broke into a house where 3 people were sleeping. 2 of the women would not survive the night, while the 3rd woman, she would be asleep while the killer watched her. Why she stayed safe, no one really knows. But 5 months later, this guy would strike again. Who that man was wouldn't really be finalized until almost 20 years passed. Big shout out to the Grangegorman murders, written by Alan Bailey, who was a detective in this case. And before we dive into it, please subscribe to see new true crime cases and bizarre stories every week. Now let's give it a go.
Let's give it a go. That explains it. This shit happened in, you know what I'm saying, probably, you know, in his town, in his city, like close to where he lived. That's why he, you know what I'm saying, was able to go and actually show the actual scenes of the crime. Cause I'm like, hold on, bro, that's Mike. He had the scene of the crime. But now it make a little more sense. But let's go.
So to begin, let me set the scene for you. Okay, I'm in this footage. This story takes us to Dublin, Ireland, the north side of the city. Grangegorman is an inner city suburb, surrounded by the now hip areas of Smithfield and Phibsborough, but back then they weren't quite like that. It's a relatively quiet area, but very handy if you needed to pop into the city for whatever. The year was 1997, a fine vintage. It was March of that year to be precise, which I do like to be on occasion. In Grangegorman, between Rathdown Road and Marne Villas, was One Orchard View. The house, it's long gone today, but this is where it would have stood.
So the 5 houses would have been right there, right behind the wall. Like, 1 would have been right there at the corner, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc.
It was almost directly beside what was also once St. Brendan Psychiatric Hospital, and the houses were owned by the health department. All the houses that stood here were for the same use. These houses were for long-term psychiatric patients. They were like halfway houses between, patient care and regular life. And though the situations in each house, it varied kind of from patient to patient, in One Orchard View, which is our house, the people who lived there lived fairly independent lives. They had jobs, they looked after themselves, they were free to come and go as much as they wanted, there wasn't a nurse there with them all the time. And the house inside was a regular house, living rooms, fully furnished kitchens, all the bedrooms, everything. Now, one thing about the house is that it was immaculate, right? The people who lived there kept it absolutely spotless. Everything was spick and span. So at the time our story begins, in that house, One Orchard View, 3 of the 4 bedrooms were occupied. One of the bedrooms was unoccupied because, well, the guy who was staying in that room, he had just left because he had a habit of calling over women. Like a lot. So staying in that house at this time was Mary Callanan, Sylvia Shields, and Anne Myrna. Mary was 61 years of age, and she had been a patient of the hospital for over 30 years, suffering from paranoid schizophrenia, something which appeared to have kicked in when her parents died when she was very young. And she had lived in this house on Orchard View for almost 10 years. Sylvia Shields was 60 years of age, and she had been a patient for almost 20 years, having been diagnosed with chronic schizophrenia, severe borderline personality disorder, and epilepsy, and she had been in the house approximately 3 years. Anne Myrna was the final woman, 46 at the time, living in the house just a couple of months. She had been a patient since the early 70s, after she had tried to take her own life and had mood disorders and self-harm issues. All were well...
See, now, even though Mike said that, this house in particular was pretty, regular, I guess, as regular it can be for a psychiatric house or whatever, them people still got issues, schizophrenia, suicidal, you know what I'm saying? They still got some disorders, some mental disorders. So who this man was? And why the hell y'all let him go? What the hell was his disorders? Is he capable to be out living on his own without being under somebody's eye? I'm already at the point where I think the man the one who came back and killed these damn ladies. That's just where I'm at. Let's see.
Well-liked, lovely women. No one had a bad thing to say about them. Like, they would often go to the nearby bakery, pick up, cakes and other kind of sweets to give out to the other patients, and around them, just really kind, gentle people. All of them had jobs. They all worked in a sheltered workshop. They were doing just fine. So let's get to the evening of March the 6th, 1997, which was a Thursday. All 3 women were there that day and that evening, and around 8 p.m. that evening, Anne, the youngest, Anne Myrna, she was heading off to... where else? But bingo, of course. It's bingo night, baby. Sylvia and Mary, they were in the house when she left. They were watching the TV. She said, I'm heading off for the bingo. I'm going to pick up some chips from the chipper on the way home. Chips, by the way, most of my audience is American, so chips from chipper, it's like, think of big chunky French fries covered in salt and vinegar. You're fucking amazing. They said, no, we're good. We're going to be heading to bed early. We'll see you when you get back. Anne left. She went to the bingo hall. She played. She won. She won a tenner, and then she came back home. She was back in the house, One Orchard View, by 11:30 p.m. She came back in the door. The 2 other women were asleep when she got home. She popped her head into Sylvia's bedroom. They chatted a while. Sylvia congratulated her for for winning some money, and then that was it, lights out. Now here's something about Anne. She'd always had trouble sleeping, so what the doctors would advise her to do was to get a cassette player and just listen to music when she was going to sleep. It would help her sleep. Another thing Anne would also do when she was going to sleep was she'd put her head under the covers, under her blanket, her duvet or whatever. Now this is believed Anne, she'd been sexually abused when she was a kid, and it's believed it was a remnant of that. But those two things, they likely saved Anne's life.
Wow.
The following morning, 6 a.m, Anne was up and she walked down the stairs to make breakfast for the gang. However, when she walked down the stairs in the living room, she saw her handbag on the ground, and the contents just all over the floor. Now she was full sure she had left her handbag on the table, nice and neat, so got a bit of a head scratcher, right? Then she saw the kitchen, the light of the kitchen was on, and she was full sure she had turned off the kitchen light when she was, going to bed the previous night. Then she saw on the light switch blood. She saw then the window at the back of the kitchen, well, she saw the curtain gently blowing in the morning breeze.
Bro, I'm telling y'all, bro, I'm calling it. I believe it's the damn dude who they ain't even kick him out. Did he just leave? I believe it's him, though. I believe it's him.
Now, the house had been burgled a couple of months before, and that window had been made more secure, but now it appears somebody had smashed it once again. So Anne thought they'd been burgled again. She called up to Sylvia, who, they were both still in bed. Sylvia and Mary were still in bed. She called up to no answer. So what she did then was she went back up, opened the door, and Sylvia's, hey, you'll never guess, what she saw in Sylvia's bedroom was nothing short of horrific. In Sylvia Shields' bedroom was an incredibly gruesome scene. Sylvia was on her bed, her feet on the floor, her nightdress pushed up, and she was covered in blood. Anne then ran out of the house, pretty much screaming. She ran into one of the other houses on Orchard View, a house she knew there was a nurse there at the time with those patients. She went in and, telling this nurse, completely hysterical, as you can imagine what's going through her head. She was worried that whoever did this was still in the house. She was absolutely all over the place. The nurse then went across to the psychiatric hospital to get security guards. 2 security guards came. They went into one Orchard View. At first, they didn't see anything amiss. They even went into Anne's bedroom first and were like, there's nothing here. They went into the wrong bedroom. They then went into Mary and Sylvia's bedroom, and then the Gardaí, the Irish police, they were called. The first 2 guards who arrived on the scene, they actually had a trainee guard with them. Trainee police officer with them. Obviously just a couple of weeks into becoming a police officer. He would resign and leave within a couple of weeks after what he saw in that house. Detectives arrived at 7 a.m. and the state pathologist was called. And the scene was described aptly by the pathologist as carnage. In his 20 years of going to murder scenes, he had never seen anything like it. Sylvia and Mary were both on their beds, both very similar scenes, and they were pronounced dead. Full rigor mortis was found in Sylvia's body, not in Mary's, so they began to theorize Sylvia had been killed first. Both had their throats slit and had been stabbed many, many times. Some were deadly, like stabs to the heart, but many were superficial, having been inflicted after they were dead. Also, disturbingly, in Mary's vagina, there was a kitchen carving fork. It had been plunged into her. Now, neither had been sexually assaulted. Also, neither victim had defensive wounds on them, as if they were fighting off this attacker, so it seems like whoever did this, he killed them quickly and then had stabbing, attacking, doing shit to their bodies. So that way not much of a ruckus would be raised, which would alert the other person. And all the knives and items used were actually from the house. The killer didn't come bringing shit with them.
This might be a sign. The killer know where the damn knives at, right? But in a way, it probably ain't a sign, because everybody know the knives in the damn kitchen, in the cabinets in the kitchen or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I'm reaching. I'm trying to say that to say That's just another sign that is that man, because he already know the house. He already know they had knives available. Like I said, every damn house got knives available. So my theory don't really work with that for real, for real. But y'all get what I'm saying, and I bet y'all thinking out there just like me. It's that dude who end up leaving the home. He came back and killed these ladies for whatever the fuck reason. Let's go.
And the killer had gone into Anne's room, had walked to her bed, had stood right beside her with the knife. Blood was found in the room. The killer was dripping in blood, standing over Anne's bed, watching her as she slept. Why he didn't kill her too is unknown. Word began to spread when the security guards would say what they had seen. Tales of cannibalism, of all sorts of blasphemy. People were, rightly so, freaking the shit out, as you can imagine, against these horrific crimes, committed against these just lovely, gentle, kind women who wouldn't hurt a fly. Like, the level of brutality that was inflicted was fucked. Quite simply. And so the investigation began. The crime was especially brutal, and pretty early on the Gardaí wanted to speak with a crime scene profiler to help try and formulate some kind of background on this madman. Now, there was no crime scene profilers in Ireland at the time, so they contacted the British, who sent over their own crime scene profiler, and this is what he kind of came up with, examining the scene about what the clues led him to believe this kind of guy was. I'll paraphrase it, because it's quite long. Both victims were killed by one person, a male, that had violent fantasies about women. The killer would be either unaware or afraid of regular old sex. It was probably his first time killing. Early teens, mid-20s, lacking social skills. He probably works or lives nearby, and he would feel no remorse for what he did, and was very likely to do it again. That's the short and sweetened version of it anyway, and the investigators' reaction to this when they got this report was, oh balls.
Oh shit.
So the first thing they did was start looking at people in the area. The interviews, the door-to-doors, the whole thing. And months would go by. Persons of interest would come and go, and reached over 250 people at one point. The police asked for anyone who had break-ins in the area to contact them. And one person, from prison actually, contacted the police. He said that an acquaintance of his, like part of this little burglary gang, had broken into a number of houses in that area not so long ago. And when the Grangegorman murders were brought up, that what had happened in the house, apparently this guy, who was usually very quiet, very timid, he got very heated. He was like, shut up, don't talk about it. His name was Dean Lyons, and he was a heroin addict. Dean was staying at a homeless shelter at the time, and the Gardaí went to speak with him. When they did, Dean immediately said, I think I know what this is about. He agreed to go with the investigators to give his fingerprints, to give his DNA. He freely spoke with the police about his addictions, about all his kind of crimes, all his little shenanigans, all the shit he was getting up to. But he said, the night of the murders, he was staying at that shelter. He would also tell the police, though, that he had been in that house, One Orchard View, before, if you can believe that. He said he had gone into that house because he was friends with the nephew of Anne Myrna, the sole survivor. Now, that's what he said. But the police would kind of do the old Uno reverse card and say, that's not possible. You say you were in the house a year and a half before because you were friends with Anne Myrna's nephew. But Anne Myrna had only been living there a couple of months. When told this, his demeanor swiftly changed, did a whole 180, and he began crying, saying that, quote, he killed those two old ladies.
Boy, he flipped the script all the way around, didn't he? He went from I ain't do it to I ain't finna fight it no more. Yeah, I did it. Yeah, fuck it. You got me. You know what I'm saying? He didn't even try to fight it no more when he probably could have tried to fight it some more, even though he would have probably more than likely end up getting caught. And it looked like my theory wrong, y'all. Like I'm wrong, man. I'm thinking this is a dude who had moved out, but this some random guy. I guess. I mean, I'm just ready to see why in the hell. Why did you kill these two old ladies? Why, bro? Why?
Dean was arrested. He later told his mother that he was sorry and that he had done it all the while crying and sobbing.
Why?
Now, Dean, he was confessing, he was saying, I'm sorry, I did it, I killed them, I did it. He would give four statements to the police, describing the events of that night, everything he had done, all that kind of stuff. So the 4 statements he gave, though, were all contradictory about what happened. And a lot of things didn't fit with what was there. He was also given information by the questioning police officers and given wink wink suggestions about maybe it went like this. Like he would say, for example, he attacked one woman and then another one came out and he attacked her in the hall when both the victims were found on their beds.
Exactly.
That kind of stuff, like stuff that just didn't match up with the scene. But in every statement he would give, it would be matching a little bit closer to what fit, you know, the evidence. Given maybe it happened like this. You know what I mean? He was given suggestions that would match with the criminal profile that was done. Now, as you probably guessed, Dean Lyons was like on the lower end of the cognitive scale. He had an IQ of about 70. He was also a heroin addict going through withdrawals. Not severe withdrawals, but still. So he was, I mean, a psychological report would say he was extremely susceptible to suggestions and leading questions. But they continued to feed him, hey, gobble this. You know, the pressure on them to solve this was intense. The pressure from the public, the pressure from the media, the pressure from on high for detectives was pretty intense. And then, you know, they had a guy who was desperate to be convicted of it. Oh, Jesus, it was me, lads. Of course it was, you know? So they were kind of in a catch-22, like a little bit. Even though detectives were like, he didn't do it. He didn't do it. You can tell him, like, the sky's green and he'll agree with you. But you get trapped in this fallacy where you're giving him suggestions and giving him little tidbits of how it could have happened. And then so he's telling the story more and more accurate every time. And then you're under pressure to get it solved, and you've got this guy who's telling what sounds like the truth. Even though it's a complete bullshit circle that you get trapped in. Dean was just...
Okay, so it wasn't Dean then. So I guess we saying it ain't Dean. But I just want to say this too, y'all. If these police know that it's actually not him and they still charge him with it just to do it because they getting this pressure from the media and from, you know, the people of the town or whoever, they getting all that pressure. If you know it's not him, don't do that, man. Don't charge him. Even though he trying his best to get charged. He making up shit as the story goes. He get more information. Oh, did it happen like this? Okay, no, it happened like this because that's what y'all said how it happened now. So I'm going to tell you how it happened. You know what I'm saying? He tried his best to get goddamn caught. But the police, man, if y'all know that wasn't him, don't charge him because you need to find out who really fucking did it. That's why you shouldn't charge him. Because you got to bring that person who really fucking did it to justice. Now, I'm lost. As far, I don't know who the fuck did this shit now. That chapter, Mike, he got me now. He got me. Now I want to go back to my original, my OG theory that it's the dude who got goddamn. Why I keep on want to say he got kicked out, but he didn't get kicked out. He left on his own. But I want to say it's him, man. But I don't think it's this dude right here. But let's see.
Desperate to tell them what he thought they wanted to hear. So when Dean was formally charged with the murders, well, that shocked a lot of people in the police force. You know, they clearly knew this is bullshit.
And they still charged him.
Now, for a change of scene, about a 2-hour drive west of Dublin, of Grangegorman, and Dublin lies Ballintubber in County Roscommon. I hear you barking, big dog. You know, what's there? Absolutely nothing. But it is where our story takes us. In early 1996, a couple, Catherine and Carl Doyle, moved from Dublin to Ballintubber with their 4 kids. They always wanted to live in the countryside. They didn't want their kids growing up in the city, so hence the move. Now, here's a fun fact. Catherine and Carl were first cousins. Come again? The remote countryside is the last place you guys should be moving. Anyway, they moved into a small, tight-knit community just outside Ballintubber. Carl worked. The kids, they made friends. In August of 1997, Catherine's younger sister, Sarah Jane, she came to visit for a weekend from Dublin with her new fella, Mark Nash. Sarah Jane and Mark, they had met at a nightclub in Dublin, and then they had later moved in together. Now, initially it was pretty weird when Mark and Sarah Jane moved in together because Lily, who was the mother of Mark's child, also lived in that same apartment. That didn't last long, and then Sarah Jane and Mark, they got their own place later on. Now, Sarah Jane and Mark were not a great match. They fought, like, a lot. When neighbors would knock, tell them, hey, kind of, stop fighting, stop shouting at each other. Well, one time Mark, he threw shit at them.
What?
Straight up. But so they were still together, and then on an August weekend, Mark Nash and Sarah Jane Doyle went to visit, Catherine and Carl, the Doyles in Roscommon. Now, Sarah Jane actually wanted Mark to come with her to visit her family because, obviously her relationship with Mark wasn't great, and she wanted to talk to her sister, Catherine, who she thought might be able to kind of straighten Mark out a little bit, get him to settle down and fly right. That's not what happened at all, surprisingly. The first night they arrived, Mark grabbed a hammer.
Oh, shit.
He brutally attacked the adults in the house. He initially stabbed Carl as he slept on the couch, then began hammering the skulls of Sarah Jane and Catherine. Sarah Jane was knocked on the head a couple times with the hammer, but she managed to escape the house, and she hid in a bush in the garden, at which point Mark came out, still with a bloody hammer in his hand, saying, "Hey, come back inside, everything's alright." She continued hiding. He started shouting and roaring her name, then he started running around the garden, looking for her, all the while carrying a bloody hammer. Eventually, he ran off into the darkness of the night. Now, Carl and Catherine... Carl had been stabbed as he slept. He'd been stabbed to death. Catherine had her head bashed in with a hammer, and Sarah Jane barely managed to survive. And she would make a full recovery. She was very lucky not to have brain damage from what happened. And why Mark just suddenly did it? No idea. No idea why. Mark Nash was on the run for about a day when he was found on a stolen bike near Galway and arrested, violently resisting the Gardaí. However, when he was taken to the station, he immediately admitted killing Carl Doyle and Catherine Doyle. Described as bragging about it, actually. The interview Mark Nash did with the police in that Galway police station lasted about 25 minutes. And during the course of those 25 minutes, he also admitted to the Grangegorman murders, which he had done 5 months earlier. He was neither asked about it nor suspected of it. He just said it.
Wow.
Mark Nash was born in Huddersfield, England, in 1973, only 4 days older than Dean Lyons, in fact. His father left when he was young, and his grandparents, who were a big part of his life, they also left, moving back to County Mayo in Ireland. And so he grew up in Yorkshire, England, and he had no real stabilizing force in his life. He was a troubled youth, and his mother kicked him out at 18 years old after he threatened to kill her. In 1995, he moved to Leeds, where he met a woman, Lily, and he had a kid. And he was arrested for numerous offences: drugs, burglary, and sexual offences. He was actually worried that his latest arrest might result in a lengthy conviction, so hence he took himself, his partner Lily, and their kid to Ireland. They showed up in Dublin. They said that they were homeless, and so they were given a place to live by the state. They were given a flat. Pretty soon, Mark Nash got a job in telesales. Lily worked as a waitress. So, the night of, that March night in 1997, the night of the Grangegorman murders, he would tell the Gardaí during that interview that he had been out that night in Dublin. It was a work do. There had been a work thing in for his telesales job. Then he was out on the pints in the city, and he was going to walk back to his place. In fact, the apartment he lived in with Lily and their kid that they had been given, that was directly across the road from the bingo hall and Myrna had gone to that night. On his walk home, he told the police he took a wrong turn, and all of a sudden he was outside that house, 1 Orchard View in Grangegorman. He would be unable to say why he had broken into that house, what was going on in his mind. He just said he did it. He couldn't explain it. No idea what took hold of him, but he broke the window at the back, got in, took out a knife, took out a couple of instruments, and went upstairs to Mary's room and to Sylvia's room, and he did what he did. He said he walked into Anne Myrna's bedroom. He stood over her while she slept. He could describe the earphones of the cassette player she was wearing. Like, he knew everything about the house. He knew the exact details, things that hadn't been released to the police. So he knew he could describe the earphones she was wearing as he stood directly over her, blood dripping, and she was sleeping. He said the only reason he didn't kill her also was that he said he regained control of himself and he left. He went home, he showered, and he went to work the next day. Now, how much of that is true? Who knows? He's a fucking psychopath. So he was transported from Galway back to Dublin. On the way, while he was being transported, he said to the police, "Do you want me to show you the house where I killed those women?" Now, the police transporting him were from Galway, they weren't from Dublin, so they didn't exactly know where it was. So he directed them through the streets of Dublin to the house on 1 Orchard View. And he said, "That's where I killed those women." And of course, as he is a psychopath, he later retracted that confession. He said, "Sorry for wasting your time with that whole shenanigans, lads. You know, I'm a madman, so you can't really believe anything I said. In fact, maybe you even told me some things I didn't know, and maybe you kind of suggested them to me." Something like that. All the things he knew that he shouldn't have known were either suggested to him by the police, or he also had another story where he said, you know, after he'd been in town that night, he walked home and he had actually been walking near the house. And he'd actually seen the killer, the real killer, of course, the real guy, leaving the house. And he was like, well, that's odd. So he went over to investigate. And he himself went to the house, 1 Orchard View, and saw the crime scene. But he didn't do it. He just happened to stumble upon it. So Mark Nash, anyways, he'd get 2 life sentences for the murders of the Doyles, and 10 years for his attack on Sarah Jane. Him retracting his confession for the Grangegorman murders kind of meant like jack shit. He would go on trial for them at a much later time. The charges against Dean Lyons, they would be dropped in April 1998, and he would be released after spending 9 months in jail. When he was released, he actually moved to Manchester in the UK, where he had a lot of friends there, and he was supposed to, you know, he said he'd just get out of Dublin maybe for a little bit, but he said he would come back to Dublin, help in the case against Mark Nash. He would testify as a witness for the prosecution and everything. But while he was in Manchester, he shoplifted and he was sent to prison in Manchester. But he was still due to, you know, come back. In 2000, he said he's supposed to come back to continue his treatment back in Dublin. And again, you know, as I said, help the case against Mark Nash. He was released from prison in Manchester on September the 11th, 2000. And the next day, he was found dead of a heroin overdose.
Damn.
The trial against Mark Nash wouldn't actually occur for a long time. See, he was in prison for life for the Doyle murders. So the prosecution were like, no rush. You know, let's make sure we get everything together. DNA technology was advancing. In fact, it wouldn't be until 2009 that he would be formally charged with the Grangegorman murders when DNA of the victims was found on his jacket.
Wow.
In the meantime, there would be a major, commission investigation into the case against Dean Lyons, him being arrested for it, him being charged with it, him being, hint, getting a few maybe, gobble up this, suggestions about the whole deal. A few guards would get a slap on the wrist, but that would really be it. The criminal profiler would also be criticized, and not because of the criminal profiler themselves, but because the Gardaí took what he said so literally and seriously. They were trying to get the case to fit the narrative that had been created. What was supposed to be just used as a bit of a help. They were taking, we have to tick all of these boxes. Mark Nash went on trial in March 2015. 1 month later, he was found guilty and sentenced to life in prison.
Good.
Today, Mark Nash was found guilty by unanimous verdict of murdering Sylvia Shields and Mary Callanan.
Today's verdict establishes Mark Nash as this country's most prolific serial killer. What the jury didn't know is that he's already a convicted double murderer. He's serving 2 life sentences for a brutal attack on a young married couple, Carl and Catherine Doyle, at their home in Roscommon in 1997. Mark Nash might never have been caught for the Grangegorman murders had he not made those admissions and put himself in the frame. Unlike the murders he committed in Roscommon 5 months later, there was little evidence at the home of Sylvia Shields and Mary Callanan to connect him to their killings. The investigation team here at the Bridewell Garda station didn't know about him at the time and weren't looking for him. They thought they had already solved the crime and had the killer in custody, a homeless heroin addict, Dean Lyons.
They didn't think that for real. That's a goddamn lie, bro. That's a goddamn lie. Them police knew that I can't think of his name, but the heroin addict, they knew that man was not the one who had did that shit. And they just charged him anyway. And then when the real killer come out and confess, now y'all want to play that damn police, judicial system, fucked up government ass game. But this shit crazy. But let's finish it up.
Subsequently exonerated, but not before he had served 9 months in prison. There was a commission of inquiry into how a man was charged with a crime he didn't commit. It found that while the Gardaí did ask him leading questions, there was no deliberate attempt to frame him. An unprecedented public apology from An Garda Síochána came too late. Dean Lyons had died 5 years earlier in 2000. Today's verdict further vindicates him. Mark Nash fought but failed to prevent this trial going ahead. Today he was found guilty of the Grangegorman murders.
Which is A-okay with me, pal. Like, what he did in that house in Grangegorman was absolutely horrific. Carnage. He eviscerated these poor women. And then what he did in that house in Roscommon, suddenly just... I mean, not that he had any reason to do what he did in Grangegorman, but these were people, he knew. This was his girlfriend's sister and her husband. And he just, all of a sudden, just took a hammer. It was late at night, they'd been chatting away, having a few drinks. The kids were asleep in their bedrooms. All of a sudden, Carl, he was asleep. He stabbed him as he slept on the couch. Then he grabbed a hammer and went after his girlfriend and her sister. And his girlfriend was lucky to escape with her life. For what? The only thing she could say that he said during this was she needed to die. That was it. And then he went on the run on the west coast and like Galway and stuff. He's a fucking psychopath. He's probably Ireland's most infamous serial killer who is now spending the rest of his unnatural life behind bars. Sadly though, for the sole survivor of the Grangegorman attacks, Anne Myrna, her life would also be quite tragic. In 1999, she married another patient, and they moved in together in 2001. In 2005, Anne came home to find her house on fire and her bedridden husband dead inside.
Damn.
And herself passed away the following year.
Damn.
And so ends the story of the Grangegorman murders. Pretty infamous case here, and definitely one of the most gruesome in Ireland. A country that doesn't really have a whole lot of these kind of gruesome murders. Well, that makes up for it. Mark Nash, real evil sack of shit. So yeah, it's a horrific case, sad and disturbing. But Sinead, I mean, it's another case of kind of like mess ups and fucks. I mean, you gotta wonder if Mark Nash didn't confess to it, would he ever have been caught? Would Dean Lyons have gone to prison for the rest of his life? As an innocent person. Who knows? I'm glad we didn't have to find out. Thank you so much for watching.
I know, Mike, and I'm glad he said that at the end, y'all, because I was thinking about it earlier, and I probably want to say it to y'all when we get to the end of this video. Hell yeah, that's what was gonna happen, man. I wanted to say, if he would have never confessed to actually doing the murders of them two ladies, the police would have never found out. They would have just arrested the heroin addict, and that would just been the end of this story. Even though that they knew that it really wasn't that man. They were just gonna go with that and close the case. Gonna be case closed. This the murderer, and that's just it. Even though they know that wasn't him. It took that. I don't know what made this man even confess to that. He was in jail already for the rest of his life because of the crazy ass murders he committed to all his friend and his friend wife, and tried to kill his girlfriend, but luckily she survived. More than anything, what I get from this video is, man, bruh, you get this when people say, when you hear the terminology trust nobody, this would make you want to not trust nobody. Like, seriously, like, you don't know, and you can't take that in the literal sense. We can't literally say trust nobody, but in a way, in a roundabout way, trust nobody, because the randomness of what the hell he did. First of all, he just went off on, like I said, his homeboy and his girlfriend, and his homeboy girlfriend killed him, and then you just randomly walk up in some women's house that you don't know. You don't know these women from goddamn anybody you see on the street. You know, it's no relation. You go up in their house and you just randomly kill them. Then on top of not only did you randomly kill the 2 women, you go up in the other lady bedroom and you literally sit right there looking at her, but you just decide not to kill her. You had gained control of your body again. Like, don't y'all see how random and just out of the blue this man was with these damn murders? Trust nobody. I'm sorry, man. You never know who the fuck crazy in this world, man. You never know who the fuck is a killer in this world, man. This shit fucked up, boy. It's a dirty, dirty world that we live in. It's a crazy, crazy world that we live in, man. I digress, my people. Go let y'all get up out of here, man. So glad y'all came back as always. Make sure you hit that like button, comment, subscribe, do all that good things right there for me. And I'll see y'all again, my friends, tomorrow. But until then, remember this. And I got one more thing to say. Love, peace, and happiness. Stay safe. Don't stop. Keep going. Yeah.